This is Neural Newscast for Sunday, August 9th, 2026.
The Week in Review.
From Neural Newscast, I'm Peter Rowan.
And I'm Isabel Moreno.
We begin with a high-stakes diplomatic standoff involving the United States and Iran that has global energy markets on edge. President Trump announced earlier this week that he called off a major military strike against Iran, citing requests for restraint from regional allies like Qatar and Saudi Arabia. While the president suggests a deal regarding the Strait of Hormuz and denuclearization is imminent, the situation on the ground tells a much more complicated story, Isabel.
That is. While Washington expressed optimism about new negotiations, Iran's foreign ministry flatly denied any direct engagement with the United States. Instead, Tehran has been focusing its diplomatic efforts on Oman. They are working to establish a temporary shipping corridor through the Strait of Hormuz, which could potentially bypass the current United States naval blockade. However, the proposed agreement with Oman includes some very restrictive terms.
The details of that proposal are striking. Iran's parliament is considering a framework that would ban United States and Israeli ships from the waterway entirely, while imposing fees of up to 7% of cargo value on other commercial vessels. This would be a massive shift from the traditional status of the strait as a free movement waterway, and it has already triggered immediate volatility in the markets. Traders reacted quickly to the news of the canceled strikes and the potential for a new shipping framework. Brent crude futures fell more than 4% this week, dropping to around $84 a barrel.
United States benchmark oil also saw a 5% drop, trading at $80. Despite periodic drone attacks on vessels, roughly 5 million barrels of oil are still flowing daily through that southern lane near the Omani coast.
It is a fraction of the 20 million barrels that used to pass through before the conflict began in February, representing 1/5 of the global supply. The administration is clearly feeling the pressure to find a diplomatic resolution before the midterm elections this November. While managing the Middle East, the executive branch has also made a major move on the domestic front. President Trump signed 2 executive orders on Thursday that directly target birthright citizenship.
The first order aims to restrict citizenship for children born to foreign government employees and members of foreign terrorist organizations. The second is focused on what the administration calls birth tourism, denying visas to pregnant foreigners intended to secure United States citizenship for their children. This is a direct challenge to the Supreme Court, which recently reaffirmed that the 14th Amendment grants automatic citizenship to almost everyone born on United States soil.
Legal experts are already expecting immediate stays from lower courts as these orders move through the judicial system. Immigration advocates argue that birth tourism represents only a small fraction of annual births, but the White House is signaling they want to narrow the scope of the 14th Amendment once and for all. We have also seen significant security concerns here at home this week, particularly in California, Isabel.
Authorities in Rancho Palos Verdes arrested a 38-year-old man, Janine John Taylor, after he was caught monitoring security preparations at the Trump National Golf Club. This was just 2 days before a scheduled Republican National Committee fundraiser. When deputies stopped him, they found a loaded pistol and a 16-round magazine. A subsequent raid on his home in Downey uncovered body armor and an illegally modified AR platform rifle.
Taylor has pleaded not guilty to several felony charges, including possession of a short-barreled rifle. While the FBI states there is no evidence of a credible threat to the wider community, it highlights the zero-tolerance approach being taken for presidential security. In the Pacific Northwest, we have been tracking a different kind of crisis. Washington state is grappling with a massive wildfire emergency near Spokane that has forced 60,000 residents to flee their homes.
Governor Bob Ferguson has declared a statewide emergency as 16 fires remain uncontained. Roughly 700 structures have been destroyed, and the situation was exacerbated when 3 major blazes jumped the Spokane River earlier this week. There is also a criminal element to this story, Peter. Investigators have arrested a suspect with a history of mental illness and a previous conviction for the death of his father in connection with the largest of these fires. Turning to international security, German authorities are investigating a drone bomb discovery at the Leipzig airport. A quadcopter loaded with Semtex was found near Ukrainian cargo planes. which officials believe is part of a broader Russian-backed sabotage campaign across Europe.
The drone components were reportedly transported across Europe by a suspect who was paid in cryptocurrency. This follows a pattern of hybrid attacks intended to destabilize nations that are providing military aid to Ukraine.
Speaking of Ukraine, the capital was struck by a Russian ballistic missile attack on Tuesday that killed at least 14 people. President Volodymyr Zelensky has intensified his lobbying for U.S.-made Patriot missile interceptors and the licenses to produce them domestically. UN monitors have noted that civilian casualties in the region are currently at their highest levels since the full-scale invasion began in 2022. It is a sobering reminder of the ongoing human cost of this conflict.
In the technology and business world, Meta faced a landmark judgment in New Mexico this week. A court ordered the company to pay $567 million for failing to protect young people from addictive design and harmful content on Instagram and Facebook. The funds are intended for statewide mental health programs. This is being watched as a potential template for other states as federal legislation on online safety remains stalled in Congress.
While Meta faces legal trouble at home, Starbucks Korea has been dealing with a major marketing scandal. South Korean authorities raided their national headquarters following the Tank Day promotion. The campaign was launched on the anniversary of the 1980 Gwangju uprising, where military tanks were used against pro-democracy protesters. The brand is now facing a massive boycott and a criminal probe into whether the campaign constitutes defamation of the victims.
On a more positive note for technology, we saw a breakthrough in pet science. Researchers at Kindred Companion Sciences used CRISPR gene editing to create the first hypoallergenic beagles. By switching off a specific gene, they have produced puppies that do not trigger human pet allergies.
In other global news, Cambodia has reached a historic public health milestone. They are the first Asia-Pacific nation to meet the UN 95-95-95 targets for HIV treatment, a goal they achieved well ahead of the 2030 deadline.
We also saw movement in the aviation sector as Air India appointed Tewolde Gebremariam as its new CEO. The former Ethiopian Airlines chief is tasked with navigating the carrier through a period of severe financial losses and safety concerns following a fatal crash last year.
Finally, we must note the tragic loss of Ugandan football star David Awori, who was killed during a robbery in Kampala. His death has sparked a national debate over rising violent crime in the Ugandan capital.
It has been a heavy week with significant shifts in both policy and security. We will be watching the courts in the coming days to see how the challenges to the president's executive orders unfold. This has been Neural Newscast. Thanks for listening. Neural Newscast is AI-assisted, human-reviewed. View our AI transparency policy at neuralnewscast.com.